My name is Jennifer Hayes. I'm 35 years old, an interior designer who built her own path in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was a Tuesday night when my phone buzzed with a text from my mom that stopped me cold. The message said, "Don't call or come over. We're done." I froze, staring at those words until the screen dimmed. My heart sank, but I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I typed 2 words, "Got it." That was all. Years of pouring my heart, time, and money into my family disappeared in one short message. I'd covered Mom's medical bills. I'd paid off my brother's debts. I even helped keep our family restaurant alive when it was on the edge of closing. And still, they cut me off without a second thought. I sat there in silence, the blue light of my phone glowing in the dark room. I thought maybe this was a joke. Maybe Mom would call back and say it was a mistake. But the next few hours proved me wrong. By midnight, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Missed calls. Voicemails. Messages stacking one after another. Mom's number flashed again and again. Then my brother's. Then my dad's. They were all panicking. And deep down, I knew why. They'd finally realized I was their safety net, and I had just pulled it away. That moment changed everything. I didn't know it yet, but the truth about my family, about what they'd been hiding, was about to unfold in ways I could never imagine. Growing up in Tulsa, we looked like the perfect family. My dad ran a small chain of restaurants. He was a local success story, the kind people admired. He started with a single diner and built it into a family business. My mom, a former banker, left her career to help him manage everything: the books, the staff, the house. To everyone on the outside, we were the picture of success. But inside, things were never equal. My younger brother, Brandon, was the favorite. He was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Me? I was the odd one out. I didn't care about the restaurant business. I loved design. I loved spaces, colors, the way light could change a room. I wanted to create things that made people feel. Dad never understood that. At dinner, he'd say, "The restaurants are our future, Jennifer. You'll learn the business." His voice was firm, like there was no other option. But I wasn't drawn to grease-stained aprons and cash registers. I wanted to design homes and hotels, not count table napkins. When I told him I wanted to study interior design, he laughed. "That's not a career," he said. "That's a hobby." His words cut deep. Mom didn't defend me. She just sat there quietly, avoiding my eyes. It was like she agreed with him but didn't want to say it out loud. At 17, I applied to a top art school in Chicago. When I got accepted, I was thrilled. But when I showed the letter to Dad, his face turned to stone. "If you're not joining the restaurant business, you're on your own," he said. "No tuition. No help." Mom nodded quietly, as if her silence made it easier. That night, I packed my bags and promised myself I'd never depend on them again. Chicago wasn't easy. I worked 2 jobs, waitressing and tutoring, to pay what scholarships didn't cover. I studied until sunrise and took every design job I could find. I lived on coffee and determination. But it was worth it. When I finally graduated, I looked at my diploma and whispered, "You did this alone." Dad never called. Mom sent a card once, a plain white one with "Proud of you" written inside, but it felt empty. Like she wrote it because she had to. When I came home for Christmas that year, Brandon was 17 and already helping at the restaurant. Everyone praised him. Dad couldn't stop talking about how Brandon was a born leader. The same week, Brandon forgot to lock one of the restaurant doors. Thieves broke in and stole thousands in cash and equipment. I expected Dad to lose it, but he didn't. He just sighed and said, "He's learning." A few days later, Dad found out I'd missed dinner because of a last-minute freelance project. He yelled at me for being selfish. That was when I realized I could cure cancer and they'd still find a way to criticize me. The years passed, and I built my own life. I opened a small design studio in Tulsa. At first, it was tough. Some months, I barely paid rent. But slowly, I started getting clients, cafes, hotels, and small businesses who loved my modern but warm designs. I turned dull spaces into places people loved to be. By the time I turned 30, I was earning six figures. I bought a small condo. My name started appearing in local magazines. For the first time, I felt like I had made it. But success didn't bring family closer. It made the distance worse. 5 years ago, Mom got sick. Her health dropped fast. The doctor said she needed surgery and treatment that insurance wouldn't fully cover. I didn't think twice. I transferred thousands to cover her bills. I told myself it wasn't about them, it was about doing what was right. Dad called to say thank you, but his tone was cold. "We'll pay you back," he said. We both knew he wouldn't. Mom texted, "Thank you, Jennifer." No heart emoji. No call. Just that. Then came Brandon's mess. His food truck business failed, leaving him deep in debt. Dad called again, his voice hard and direct. "Brandon needs help. You're doing well, step up." I sent $30,000 to clear Brandon's debts. Another $20,000 to help the restaurants. Brandon never said thank you. Instead, he bragged at a family barbecue about how he had saved the business. I stood there listening while Dad patted his back proudly. My stomach turned. Still, I kept giving. When they needed new kitchen equipment, I paid for it. When Mom needed specialists in Dallas, I paid for travel and treatment. Every time, I hoped they'd finally see me, not as a wallet, but as their daughter. But every family dinner was the same. Dad and Brandon talked about expansion plans. Mom nodded and smiled. I'd try to share my design achievements, and they'd brush them off. "That's nice," Mom would say. "But Brandon's working so hard." It hurt, but I stayed quiet. I told myself that maybe one day they'd be proud. Then came the turning point. I had a new business idea, an eco-friendly interior design firm that used sustainable materials. It was a growing trend, and I had the research to prove it could be big. I invited my family to hear my proposal. I made slides. I ran the numbers. I showed them how it could earn more than any of Dad's restaurants ever did. But when I finished, Dad just shook his head. "Hotels don't care about recycled wood," he said. "Stick to decorating houses." Brandon laughed, not even looking up from his phone. "You sound like you're pitching a school project," he said. Mom stood by the counter, rearranging napkins, her favorite way to avoid conflict. I turned to her and said softly, "Mom, I can do this. You've seen what I built." She sighed. "It's risky, Jennifer. The restaurants are what we know." Her words crushed me. Then Brandon's wife, Tara, spoke. She said quietly, "I think it's a great idea. Sustainability is important." For a second, I felt seen. But Brandon shot her a look, and she went silent. Dad waved his hand. "We're not wasting money on experiments. Brandon's opening a new restaurant. That's our future." I stood there shaking. They had no idea how much money I'd poured into keeping them afloat. Hundreds of thousands. I wasn't asking for a gift, I was asking for belief. That night, I drove home in silence. My laptop sat beside me, still open to the last slide of my presentation. A family legacy reimagined. It felt ironic. I didn't know it then, but that meeting was the start of everything falling apart. A few weeks later, after another family dinner, Tara pulled me aside. Her face was pale, her hands shaking. "Jennifer," she whispered. "There's something you need to know. Brandon's been taking money from the restaurants. 4 years. I froze. "What?" She nodded. "I found receipts, hidden accounts. He's been skimming profits. That's why your dad keeps asking for help." My heart raced. I couldn't believe it, or maybe I didn't want to. All those times Dad said the restaurants were struggling, all those times I sent money, Brandon had been stealing. Before I could respond, I heard Dad's voice in the next room. I stepped closer and listened. "We need to finalize the will," he said. "Brandon's the only one keeping this family together. Jennifer doesn't care about us." Mom's voice was quiet. "But she's done so much," Dad cut her off. "Money isn't loyalty. Brandon's our legacy." I stood there in shock. My chest felt tight. I wanted to burst into the room and scream. But I didn't. I slipped out the back door instead, my hands trembling. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. After everything I'd done for them, they still chose Brandon. The son who lied and stole. And then the next morning, the text came. "Don't call or come over. We're done." I didn't cry this time. I didn't argue. I just replied, "Got it." But what happened after that text, what they did next, was worse than I ever imagined. The morning after, I woke up to a flood of notifications. Missed calls. Voicemails. Dozens of unread messages. My phone screen lit up again and again, each buzz slicing through the quiet of my apartment. Mom, Dad, Brandon, all of them. The same people who'd told me I wasn't part of the family anymore now suddenly couldn't stop reaching out. At first, I ignored them. I made myself coffee, trying to focus on work. But the calls kept coming. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened my voicemail. The first message was from Brandon. His voice was angry, sharp. "You think you can just walk away? You're selfish, Jennifer. You left us hanging." I blinked in disbelief. Selfish? After all the money I'd poured into them? After all the times I'd saved their business? Then came Dad's message. "Jennifer, you need to fix this. The restaurants can't run without your help. You owe us that much." His tone wasn't pleading. It was commanding, like I was some employee who had skipped a shift. I felt my stomach twist. Owe them? After everything? I deleted the voicemail and kept scrolling. Mom's messages were different. Guilt-filled. Manipulative. "How could you do this to me, Jennifer?" one said. "After everything I've been through?" Another said, "You're breaking this family apart. You'll regret this one day." I could hear her crying softly at the end of one message. The sound made my chest ache, but I knew that was exactly what she wanted. She'd always known how to play on my heart. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My phone lit up again. "Brandon. You'll regret this," his message read. "We'll take legal action if we have to." Legal action? For what? Refusing to keep paying their bills? I laughed bitterly. I put my phone face down on the nightstand and whispered to myself, "No more." The next morning, I opened my banking app. For the first time in years, I didn't see automatic transfers draining my account. No medical payments for Mom. No restaurant bills. No mysterious withdrawals labeled family support. For the first time, I was free. And that scared them. Days turned into weeks. I focused on my clients, on my projects, trying to forget. But the messages didn't stop. Dad left another voicemail, "You've disappointed your mother. Her condition is getting worse. Do you really want that on your conscience?" I played that message twice, his words echoing in my head. He wasn't asking for help, he was blaming me for her illness. Something inside me broke that day. I realized they would never see me as a daughter. Only as a resource. A backup plan. That weekend, I took a long drive to the lake outside Tulsa, the same lake we used to visit when I was a kid. I sat on a bench near the water, watching the sunlight shimmer across the waves. It used to be my happy place. Now it felt like the only place I could breathe. I thought about Tara's warning. About Brandon stealing money. About my parents ignoring it. I wondered if Mom and Dad knew. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't want to know. Brandon had always been their golden boy, their precious legacy. A week later, I was at my office when I got a call from an unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something told me to pick up. "Jennifer Hayes," a voice said. "This is Officer Daniels with the Tulsa Police Department." My heart skipped. "Yes?" He sighed. "We need you to come down to the station. It's about your brother." The drive there felt endless. My hands shook on the steering wheel. My thoughts were all over the place. Was Brandon in trouble? Was he hurt? When I arrived, the officer greeted me and motioned for me to sit. "We're investigating financial irregularities connected to your family's restaurant business," he said. "We have reason to believe funds were misappropriated." I swallowed hard. "You mean stolen?" He nodded. "Your brother, Brandon Hayes, is currently under investigation for embezzlement. We're still reviewing records." I leaned back in the chair, my pulse pounding in my ears. I wasn't shocked. Not really. Deep down, I'd known Tara was right. But hearing it confirmed made me dizzy. The officer slid a folder toward me. "Your name shows up in the financial logs, large transfers made from your personal account to the restaurants. We need to confirm whether you were aware of how that money was being used." I nodded slowly. Every payment I made was to help my family. I didn't know Brandon was stealing from the business. He wrote something down. "We believe you," he said gently. "But you might still be contacted by the auditors for further statements." As I walked out of the station, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief that the truth was finally out. Sadness that it had come to this. That night, I sat in my living room surrounded by old photo albums. Pictures of birthday parties, family trips, holidays. In every photo, Dad was smiling proudly. Mom was by his side. Brandon was always front and center, his arms slung around me like a trophy sibling. And me, I was always slightly out of focus. I closed the album. The family I thought I had was never real. It was a performance, and I was the one who kept paying for the stage. The next morning, Tara called. Her voice trembled. "Jennifer, they know I told you. Brandon found out. He's furious." My stomach dropped. "Are you okay?" "I'm leaving," she whispered. "I can't stay with him anymore. I thought he'd change, but he's not the person I married." I felt a wave of pity and admiration. Tara had more courage than I'd ever given her credit for. After that call, I stayed quiet. I didn't answer my parents' calls. I didn't respond to their messages. But they found another way to reach me, through the media. A local news outlet ran a story about the restaurant's financial troubles. The headline read, "Tulsa Family Business Faces Collapse Amid Internal Scandal." They mentioned Brandon's investigation. But what shocked me most was a quote from my father. He said, "Our daughter turned her back on us when we needed her most. We're struggling because she walked away." I read the words again and again, tears burning my eyes. They were trying to blame me for what Brandon had done. They couldn't accept the truth, so they twisted it. The article spread fast. Old family friends started reaching out, asking questions, pretending to care. I didn't answer any of them. That weekend, someone spray-painted "Traitor" across the front door of my design studio. When I saw it the next morning, my knees buckled. My assistant, Lauren, rushed to clean it, but I told her to stop. "Leave it," I said quietly. "I want to remember this." That word, traitor, had followed me my whole life. To them, standing up for myself meant betrayal. A few days later, I got another call from Tara. She'd filed for divorce. Brandon had been arrested after trying to withdraw thousands from the business account the day before the freeze. She said Dad refused to believe it. Mom, she said, was beside herself, blaming me for everything. I felt numb. "They'll never change," I whispered. But the storm wasn't over yet. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my parents' lawyer. My hands trembled as I opened it. It read, "To Jennifer Hayes, this letter serves as notice that you have been formally removed from the family estate and all associated business interests." No greeting. No explanation. Just legal confirmation that I'd been erased. I sat there staring at the paper until the words blurred. My chest felt heavy, but at the same time, there was something freeing about it. I folded the letter neatly, put it back in the envelope, and dropped it into the trash. They wanted to cut me out completely. Fine. I'd do the same. That evening, I went for a walk downtown. The sunset painted the sky in orange and gold. People were laughing outside restaurants, the sound of clinking glasses floating through the air. For the first time in years, I wasn't rushing to fix someone else's problem. I wasn't saving anyone. When I got home, I opened my laptop and drafted a long email. It wasn't to my parents. It was to myself. I wrote down everything, every memory, every wound, every lie I'd believed. I titled it, "The Things I Let Go." It became my reminder that love without respect isn't love. Months passed. My design business grew faster than ever. I took on new clients in Dallas, then Houston. My name started appearing in national magazines. One day, I got an offer from a large architecture firm to buy my eco-friendly design concept, the same idea my family had mocked. They offered me $1 million. When I signed the contract, I cried. Not because of the money, but because I'd done it without them. Still, despite my success, a part of me missed Mom. I missed Sunday calls, her soft voice, her cooking, her garden. Sometimes, I'd pick up my phone, open her contact, and hover over call. But I never pressed it. One night, about a year after the fallout, there was a knock on my door. I hesitated before answering. When I opened it, Tara stood there. She looked tired, thinner than I remembered, but there was relief in her eyes. "Hey," she said softly. I didn't know who else to talk to. I let her in. We sat at the kitchen table with cups of tea. She told me everything. How Brandon had been sentenced to probation, how my parents had lost both restaurants, and how they'd moved into a small rented house outside the city. "They're not the same," she said. "Your mom, she asks about you sometimes. She regrets the text." I felt tears sting my eyes. "It's too late," I whispered. Tara nodded. "I know. But I think she finally sees who you really are." That night, after she left, I sat by the window watching the rain. I didn't know if I'd ever forgive them. But for the first time, I felt peace. Still, something in me said it wasn't over. I could feel it, like a storm waiting just beyond the horizon. And I was right. Because the next day, I got a call that would drag me right back into the past I thought I'd left behind. It was early morning, the kind where the sun is soft and the world still feels quiet. My phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something in me said, "Pick up." "Is this Jennifer Hayes?" a man's voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "This is Dr. Morris. I'm calling from St. Francis Hospital. It's about your mother." The mug slipped from my hand and shattered on the tile. My chest tightened. What happened? "She was brought in early this morning. Heart complications. She's stable for now, but she asked for you." I froze. She asked for me? After all those months of silence? After that text saying we were done? "I'll be there soon," I said. The drive to the hospital felt like a dream. The sky was gray, the air heavy with humidity. Every traffic light felt like a test of patience I didn't have. When I reached the hospital, I found Mom lying in a narrow bed, pale and frail, tubes trailing from her arm. Her eyes fluttered open when she heard my footsteps. "Jennifer," she whispered. For a second, I couldn't speak. All the anger I'd carried for months cracked into something softer. I sat beside her and took her hand. It was cold, fragile. You came, she said, tears filling her eyes. Of course I came, I whispered back. You're still my mother. She tried to smile, but her lips trembled. I'm sorry for everything, she said weakly. Your father, he made mistakes. We both did. I felt my throat tighten. You told me not to come back, Mom. I know, she said, a tear sliding down her cheek. I thought I was protecting your brother. I thought family meant loyalty. But I see now. I was wrong. I squeezed her hand, unsure what to say. Before I could reply, the door opened. My father walked in. His face was hard, but his eyes, red-rimmed and tired, gave away the truth. He looked older than I remembered. You shouldn't have called her, he said to Mom. Stephen, she whispered, she deserves to know. He turned to me, his jaw tight. You made your choice, Jennifer. You walked away. I walked away because you pushed me out, I said calmly. He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. His shoulders sagged. For the first time in my life, my father looked defeated. She's sick, he said quietly. We lost everything, and now, he stopped, his voice breaking. I looked at him, searching for the man who once ran a restaurant empire, the man who used to command every room. All I saw was someone broken by pride and regret. The doctor entered then, sparing us more words. Mrs. Hayes needs rest, he said. I nodded and stepped out into the hallway. My knees felt weak. I leaned against the cold wall, breathing hard. A few minutes later, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Tara. She looked different, more peaceful somehow. I heard about your mom, she said softly. Thanks for coming, I said. She handed me a small envelope. Your mom gave me this weeks ago. She said if something ever happened, to make sure you got it. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a letter written in Mom's handwriting. Jennifer, if you're reading this, it means I didn't get the chance to say everything in person. I know I hurt you. I know we failed you. But please understand, your father couldn't face the truth about Brandon. He needed to believe in him, even when it destroyed us. You were the strong one, the one who stood alone. And I'm proud of you for it, even if I never said it. Don't let this family's mistakes define you. Build something new. Live free. Love yourself the way I never taught you to. Mom, the words blurred through my tears. For years, I'd wanted her to say those things, to admit what I'd always felt. And now, here they were on paper. I folded the letter carefully, pressing it to my chest. When I returned to Mom's room, she was asleep. The monitor beeped softly beside her. Dad sat in the corner, staring at the floor. I read her letter, I said quietly. He didn't look up. Good for you. Dad, I said gently, it's not too late to be honest. About Brandon. About everything. His eyes flicked toward me, sharp again. Don't start this. I'm not here to fight, I said. I just want you to stop pretending. He stood suddenly, his chair scraping the tile. Pretending? You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to lose everything? I stayed calm. You wanted control. And you lost it. He stared at me for a long time, then walked out without a word. That night, Mom's condition worsened. The doctors said her heart was too weak. I stayed beside her, holding her hand until dawn. When the sun rose, she took her last breath. For a long time, I didn't move. The world felt still, heavy. I listened to the monitor's flat tone and whispered, I love you. After her funeral, Dad didn't speak to me. Not once. He sat in the front row, stone-faced, as if mourning his pride instead of his wife. When the guests left, I stayed behind. The cemetery was quiet. The grass swayed gently in the breeze. I knelt by her grave and whispered, I forgive you. Then I turned and saw Tara standing a few feet away. She loved you, Tara said softly. I know, I replied. We stood there in silence, two women bound by loss and betrayal. A week later, I got another letter, this time from the bank. My parents' house was being foreclosed. The restaurant properties were already gone. Everything my father had built was gone. I thought that would bring me peace. It didn't. Late one night, I received another call. This time it was Dad. His voice was weak. "Jennifer," he said, "I need help." I almost hung up. But something stopped me. "Where are you?" I asked. He gave me an address on the outskirts of Tulsa. A rundown motel. I drove there, half angry, half curious. When I arrived, he was sitting on the edge of the bed, hunched over. The room smelled of old cigarettes and cheap coffee. "I have nothing left," he said, not looking up. "They froze the accounts. Brandon's gone. The debts, they're all in my name." I crossed my arms. "You blamed me for this, remember?" He sighed. "I was wrong." The words felt small, but they hit hard. "You said I'd regret walking away," I said quietly. "But you were wrong about that too." He looked up, tears in his eyes. "You were always stronger than all of us." For the first time, I saw him not as the man who'd hurt me, but as a broken father who'd finally realized what he'd lost. "I can't fix this for you," I said gently. "But I can help you start over, if you're willing to be honest." He nodded slowly, like he didn't believe he deserved it. Over the next few weeks, I helped him find a small apartment and connected him with a local program that helped struggling business owners. I didn't give him money, I gave him something harder: boundaries. Every Sunday, I'd visit for coffee. Sometimes we sat in silence. Sometimes he'd tell stories about Mom, about their early days running the diner. Little by little, his anger faded. One afternoon, he handed me an old photo. It was from years ago, me at 12 years old, standing in the restaurant kitchen, covered in flour, laughing. "She took that," he said softly. "Your mother. She said you had your own kind of light." I smiled faintly. "She was right." He nodded. "I wish I'd seen it sooner." Months passed. Life moved on. I poured myself into my work again, traveling, designing, building something new. But the past had a way of circling back. One morning, I got an envelope with no return address. Inside was a folded piece of paper and a single photo: Mom, Dad, Brandon, and me, taken the year before everything fell apart. On the back of the photo, someone had written in shaky handwriting, "Family isn't who stands beside you when it's easy. It's who stays when it's hard." There was no signature. But I knew it was from Dad. I placed it in a frame on my desk, not as a reminder of pain, but as proof of growth. Then, 2 months later, another letter came. This one from a law firm. It said that before Mom passed, she had made a private amendment to her will, one my father never knew about. She'd left me something. A small lake house outside Tulsa. The one we used to visit every summer when I was a child. I drove there that weekend. The wooden porch creaked as I stepped onto it. The lake shimmered in the afternoon sun. Everything looked the same: the old rocking chair, the faded curtains, the smell of pine and dust. I walked inside. On the mantel was a single envelope with my name on it. Inside was a short note in Mom's handwriting: "This is where peace lives, Jennifer. Come here when you forget who you are." I sat on the old couch and let the quiet wrap around me. For the first time in years, I felt safe. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I heard a knock on the door. I opened it to find my father standing there, holding a small box. "I found this while cleaning out the old storage unit," he said. Inside the box were family photos, Mom's wedding ring, and a folded napkin from the first diner they'd ever opened. Written on it in Dad's handwriting were the words, "Hayes family. Built from love." He looked at me, his eyes wet. "I lost sight of that," he said. I nodded, tears falling freely. "Maybe now we can rebuild something different." He smiled faintly. "If you'll let me." I stepped aside and said softly, "Come in." We sat together on the porch as the last light faded, two broken people learning how to forgive. And as the night settled over the lake, I finally understood what peace felt like, not silence, not absence, but the slow healing that comes when you stop running from your own story. But even as I breathed that peace in, my phone buzzed on the table beside me. It was a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a calm voice said, "Miss Hayes, this is Detective Ross. We need to speak to you about something concerning your brother, Brandon Hayes." My heart skipped. "What about him?" He hesitated. "We believe he's missing." The world tilted. The porch light flickered. And once again, the past I thought I'd buried came rushing back. "Missing?" I repeated, gripping the phone tighter. "What do you mean, missing?" Detective Ross's voice stayed calm. "Brandon Hayes was reported missing by his employer 2 weeks ago. He never showed up for work. His phone's been off since then. You're listed as his next of kin." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My brother and I hadn't spoken in almost 2 years. The last thing I remembered clearly was the look on his face when they took him away in handcuffs. "I'm not sure how I can help," I said slowly. "We just need to know when you last had contact with him," the detective said. I looked out at the dark lake, its surface still and cold. "Not since the investigation," I whispered. He paused. "If anything comes to mind, even small details, please call me." When the call ended, I sat there for a long time. The night air was cool, but my palms were sweating. Missing. Brandon Hayes. My brother. The golden child. The one who had everything handed to him until it all collapsed. I didn't know whether to feel fear or relief. The next morning, I drove to town. I couldn't focus. I ordered coffee and barely tasted it. Every few minutes, my mind drifted back to childhood, the sound of Brandon's laughter, the smell of Mom's pancakes, Dad's booming voice calling us to help in the restaurant. Where had it all gone wrong? My phone buzzed again that afternoon. Another unknown number. This time it was Tara. "Jennifer," she said, her voice shaking. "Tara, what's going on?" "They found his car," she said between sobs. "Near the old diner. But no Brandon." The words sank like stones in my chest. Did they find anything inside?" She hesitated. "His wallet. His phone. That's all." I closed my eyes. "Where exactly?" "By the back entrance. The one near the alley." I remembered that alley, the smell of grease, the noise of deliveries, the place Dad used to stand when he smoked after closing. I'd played there as a kid. I ended the call and stared at my reflection in the window. A part of me wanted to leave it alone. I'd spent years trying to escape their mess. But another part whispered, "You need to know the truth." That night, I drove to the old diner. It was closed down now, the windows boarded, the sign faded. Hayes Family Grill. The paint was peeling, but the name still clung stubbornly to the wall. I parked near the alley. The air smelled of rain and rust. I stood there in the quiet, staring at the place where it had all begun. Then I saw it, a faint flicker of light through one of the boarded windows. I froze. I wasn't imagining it. Someone was inside. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. My heart pounded as I stepped closer. The door creaked open with a push. Inside, the air was thick with dust. Chairs were overturned, menus scattered across the floor. My footsteps echoed softly as I walked toward the back. And then I saw him. Brandon. He was sitting on the floor behind the counter, his head buried in his hands. When he looked up, his eyes were red and hollow. "Jennifer," he whispered, like my name hurt to say. I gasped. "Brandon, what happened?" "Everyone's looking for you." He shook his head. "You shouldn't have come." "Brandon, you're missing." "I'm not missing," he snapped. "I'm hiding." I froze. From what? He leaned back against the wall, his voice trembling. From the people I owe. The ones who helped me cover the books when Dad started falling apart. My stomach turned. You stole more money, didn't you? He laughed bitterly. It's not stealing when you're trying to survive. You think you're the only one who carried this family? You walked away, and I tried to fix things. By committing more crimes? I said quietly. He rubbed his face. They'll kill me, Jennifer. I messed with the wrong people. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence felt heavy, like the walls themselves were listening. Let me help, I said finally. He looked up, eyes wide. Help? After everything? After you watched me fall? I didn't watch you fall, I said. You jumped. He flinched like the words hit him. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. The lights flickered again, and I saw how pale he was, how lost. I can call Detective Ross, I said softly. You can turn yourself in. Maybe. He stood up suddenly, shaking his head. No cops. Brandon, and no cops. His shout echoed through the empty diner. I stepped back, startled. His breathing was ragged. You don't understand, he said. They don't want money anymore. They want silence. Lightning flashed outside. For a second, his shadow stretched long across the wall. Then I heard it, a car engine. Headlights swept across the boarded windows. Brandon froze. They found me. Who? He didn't answer. He grabbed a small backpack and looked at me. Go home, Jennifer. Forget you saw me. Brandon, wait, he pushed past me and ran out the back door into the rain. I followed him outside, shouting his name, but he was already gone. All I saw were the taillights of a dark SUV disappearing down the wet street. I stood there in the rain, shaking. The past had caught up with us again. The next day, the police called. They'd found signs of a struggle near the diner, footprints, tire marks, a broken phone screen. But no Brandon. I told them everything, that I'd seen him, that he'd been scared. Detective Ross nodded slowly. If what you're saying is true, this isn't just about money anymore. What do you mean? He looked grim. We believe your brother got involved with people laundering cash through the restaurant network. When he went to prison, someone else took over. Now they want to tie loose ends. I sat in silence, trying to process it. My family's legacy, our name, had turned into something dark and dangerous. For days, I couldn't eat. I couldn't work. Every sound made me jump. Then, one evening, as I was locking up my design studio, I saw an envelope taped to the door. My name was written on it in bold letters. Inside was a single photo. It was Brandon, standing by the lake house porch, from just a few days ago. On the back, one line was written in rough handwriting, "You can't save everyone." I felt my knees weaken. Someone had been watching me. I drove home fast, checking my mirrors every few seconds. My heart raced until I reached the safety of the lake house. But when I stepped inside, the lights were already on. Dad? I called out. No answer. The floorboards creaked softly. I moved slowly toward the living room, and froze. Dad was sitting there in the armchair, his face pale. Jennifer, he said quietly. They came. Who came? The men Brandon owed, he said, his voice shaking. They wanted the money. They thought I had it. I told them to leave you out of it. Dad, what did you tell them? He covered his face with his hands. That he might have come here. That he trusted you. I stared at him in disbelief. You told them I knew where he was? He looked up, tears in his eyes. I didn't know what else to do. I felt cold all over. We spent the night in silence, the rain tapping against the windows. Every sound made me flinch. I locked all the doors and checked them twice. In the morning, Dad was gone. His car was still outside. His wallet was still on the counter. Only his phone and coat were missing. Panic clawed at my chest. I called Detective Ross again. He arrived within the hour. I told him everything, the envelope, the men, my father's disappearance. He took notes, then looked around the house carefully. "Ms. Hayes," he said finally, "do you mind if we check the property?" I nodded. They searched the woods near the lake. Hours passed. The sun dipped low. Then I heard shouting. I ran outside. 2 officers were waving from the dock. Floating near the reeds was a small wooden rowboat. Inside it was my father's coat. And under it, a note sealed in a plastic bag. I took it with shaking hands. "Jennifer," I told them I didn't know where Brandon was. "I think they believed me. But if they come again, leave this place. Don't try to save me. I've made too many mistakes. If you ever find your brother, forgive him. Forgive me too." Dad, I sank to my knees. The sky turned red with sunset, and the world felt heavy and hollow. The police never found his body. They said maybe he drowned. Maybe he ran. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Days became weeks. The investigation dragged on. Eventually, the news moved on too. But I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my family, Mom's gentle smile, Dad's tired eyes, Brandon's anger. 3 ghosts living rent-free in my mind. One evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, staring at the lake. The water was still. Quiet. Peaceful, almost. Then my phone buzzed again. No caller ID. I hesitated, then answered. "Jennifer," a voice whispered. My heart jumped. "Brandon?" "Don't speak," he said quickly. "They're still looking for me. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "Where are you?" "I can't tell you," he said. "But I wanted you to know, Dad tried to save me. They found him because of me." His voice broke. "I'm so sorry." "Come home," I pleaded. "We can fix this." He let out a shaky breath. "You already did. You walked away when I couldn't." Then the line went dead. I tried calling back, but the number was gone. I sat there shaking, the phone still pressed to my ear. For the first time, I realized he might never come back. A few days later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a small wooden box. When I opened it, I found Mom's necklace, the one she used to wear every Sunday, and a photo of all of us at the lake. On the back, written in Brandon's handwriting, were 4 words, "Don't let it end." I broke down crying. Maybe he was alive. Maybe he wasn't. But somewhere out there, a part of him was still trying to make things right. I placed the photo on the mantel next to Mom's note. The house was quiet again. That night, I walked down to the dock. The moonlight shimmered on the water. I whispered into the wind, "I forgive you. Both of you." And as I stood there, I felt something shift inside me. The years of guilt, anger, and grief began to loosen their grip. I finally understood what Mom meant in her letter: to live free, to love myself, to stop carrying the weight of everyone else's choices. The past would always be part of me. But it didn't own me anymore. When I went back inside, I sat at my desk and opened a new project file. The title at the top of the page read, "Hayes House Design, A New Beginning." It wasn't just a business plan. It was my way of honoring everything, the good, the bad, the lost. Months later, the lake house became my studio. Clients came, stories were shared, and life slowly found rhythm again. Sometimes, I still get letters. No return address. Just short messages. "I'm safe. I found peace." I never know if they're really from Brandon, but I like to believe they are. And when I lock up at night, I always turn once toward the lake, where the water glows under the moonlight, and whisper the same words back, "I hope you did too." Because sometimes, closure isn't about answers. It's about acceptance. It's about choosing peace even when the story never fully ends. Thank you for listening to mine. If you've ever had to forgive someone who hurt you, or rebuild your life from ashes, I hope my story reminds you, you can survive it too.